This series is called 17 Tips for the Content Creator, and it's by the My Little Homestead family. Our family began producing videos on YouTube in 2009. Content creators on YouTube pride themselves on being self-taught rather than professionally trained. It is this autonomy and resourcefulness that led to the popular, creative, non-traditional content that viewers know and love. Like everyone else, we were learning by trial and error. Our real-life experience from over 12 years creating videos on YouTube, rather than from a traditional education in film, has taught us many techniques that we're excited to share with you. We cover the general principles of video production as well as specifics, so our tips will benefit you whether you are already creating videos or just beginning. If you're ready to elevate your video content, you picked the right video series, so dive in and enjoy. Improving our editing makes creating videos more enjoyable, and this is why we decided to share 17 simple video tips. Over the years, we learned a lot from producing regular content on YouTube. When we first started, we found ourselves lost and frustrated by the daunting task of making a video look professional. The best piece of advice we ever received, which we still recall clearly to this day, was during a YouTube conference. A couple of successful brothers created a musical video spoofing Disney princesses. You might remember it. It was viewed by several million people. One of the brothers shared that he acquired his understanding of filmmaking and video editing by meticulously analyzing professionally edited videos with one primary question in mind: what are they doing that I'm not? We were intrigued and driven to learn more. From that day forward, we were transfixed on every show and film we consumed, paying special attention to the seamless transitions between scenes. As we gained understanding and discovered editing and storytelling techniques along the way, we applied them to each new video we produced. It began to make video editing fun, challenging, and highly rewarding. The second best piece of advice was from the same YouTube conference that we gleaned from a simple story about a pottery class. You may have heard this. It goes something like this. Students in a pottery class were split into two groups. One group was graded based on the number of pots they produced, while the other group was graded on the production of a single beautiful pot over the course of a 3-month-long term. Interesting, the group that produced the most pots created significantly better and more beautiful pots than the group that had a single pot. The simple lesson: if we wanted to improve our video editing skills, we needed to edit a lot of videos. When we left that conference, we immediately began creating and posting videos every single week. You can always go to the website and view all our videos from the very beginning, and hopefully you'll notice a great improvement over the years. The video tips in this booklet will range from principles to specifics. They're not necessarily in any order, so feel free to jump around to whichever tip interests you. We will be using Final Cut Pro as our editing software. However, every editor will have the same tools. If you enjoy learning as much as we do, video production provides a never-ending avenue for growth. We are sharing our experiences with you so far in our venture, but we will be continuing to grow and improve right along with you. When creating video, you are in essence telling a story, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. It should have an introduction, content, and a conclusion. If the story lacks any of these, the viewer will leave unsatisfied. When we post a video without this essential structure, we get comments indicating that the video was too short. Although sometimes this can mean that the viewer simply wants the video to last longer because they enjoyed it, which is a good thing, it can also indicate that something in our show was unfinished or incomplete. Our content usually revolves around a building project, and creating a story can be challenging. We like to look for an angle to make it fun for both us and the viewer. It takes the story to a deeper level and creates an editing challenge. For example, a father and a son set out to build a chair The story starts out with an introduction. They're gathering the building materials and explaining what they're going to do. Then we see the chair being built at various stages with some commentary on their steps and methods and perhaps a time lapse of the build. They conclude with some cool video shots of the completed chair along with their final thoughts on the outcome of the project. But how do we take this story to another level? We start asking questions. Why are they building a chair? Are they fixing an heirloom? If so, whose heirloom is it? Tell us something about the original owner. Is it the first father-son project they have worked on together? Share what it's like to work on this together. Layer video footage of the interview with video footage of the building process. The story has just advanced to another level. We viewers enjoy not only having been involved in the construction of the chair with this father and son duo, but our hearts are a little happier knowing the context and meaning behind the project. The chair was a gift for Grandpa, who would sit in it for hours with his grandchildren gathered around him, listening to his stories and to his booming laughter. I leave the video feeling encouraged and wondering if I too should find a family heirloom to fix up with my sister. No, I'm kidding. I don't have a sister. By the way, I don't recommend telling fibs simply to enhance a video. You will always uncover more meaning and purpose to the story if you just simply start asking questions. If you remember P.T. Barnum, he was the big circus guy. He had a famous saying where he said, "Always leave them wanting more." This famous saying is one that remains true today. Curiosity is what drives people to watch videos. Hopefully, the content is so contagious that the viewer will want to return for the next show. Our focus should center around good content. The more captivating our show is, the more curiosity will naturally emerge. Another way to build anticipation is by talking about what you're going to do in the next video. Whatever story is being told, we strive to have 3 elements: introduction, content, and a conclusion. If it's a continuing story, then the conclusion is simply to be continued. It may seem obvious, but I'm sure you've seen a video that leaves you scratching your head, wondering what is the point and why did I waste my time watching it? We never want to waste anybody's time. Our goal is to entertain with content that flows seamlessly and tells an engaging story. Even though we may not hit that mark every time, it is our ultimate goal on every video we put out, and our number one principle is to tell an interesting story. We like to have a guiding principle when producing a video. It is woven into each show and ties together a group of videos and/or a video series. Your video or series will have its own unique guiding principle. Ours for our weekly show is what we call the 3 H's. It stands for how-to, humor, and heartfelt. We started out producing how-to videos, and although the content has grown beyond the bounds of video tutorials, we still like to have a little instruction in each video. It's always intriguing to hear about the way something is created. It adds variety and satisfies a little curiosity for the viewer. We take one element that is unique to the how-to portion of our video and share a few details about our way of achieving it and how easy or challenging the job may have been. How-to segments represent a complete project, or if it's an ongoing project, an update on the project's progression. We find that when a viewer does not recognize accomplishment or a natural stopping point, they may feel dissatisfied, and we don't want that. We consider projects that fail or do not turn out how we hope to still be valuable content to share, as it shows what not to do. In this way, a fail transforms into a learning experience. Humor is our second H. Our family is silly and loves to laugh, so we must add that to our secret sauce. If we can make you laugh, we have met another goal. It is challenging for us to script or plan humor, so we tend to let it happen naturally. Sometimes we don't even realize something was funny until we go through the footage. Editing can also elicit humor from scenes that were otherwise unhumorous by shortening the clips and adjusting the timing. Comedy is said to be done in thirds. In other words, it takes 2 comments or actions to set up the punchline to a joke. We usually work with a video section, adding and taking away until it makes us laugh. If it makes us laugh, it usually will make someone else laugh too. If we laugh every time we rewatch it, mission accomplished. The H stands for heartfelt. Along with humor and how-to elements, we additionally want to incorporate something that speaks to and warms the heart. A heartfelt element can be as simple as footage of our furry friends in slow motion or something in more depth, such as someone sharing about an event that changed their life. In one of our videos, our son and daughter-in-law spoke about being raised on a farm and how that positively shaped their lives and influenced the way they want to raise their children. This gives us a glimpse into why they raise animals and build things such as their aquaponic system. If we are out of ideas on how to add more heart, it helps to ask why, like we talked about in the last tip, as why will generally lead to more in-depth behind the scene. For example, why are you building a hummingbird handle? It represents hope for our family, as a hummingbird appeared on cue during a fearful moment when one of our family members was faced with life-threatening cancer. Why put a tree in the middle of the kitchen? We love having unique spaces to live in. A tree shape is never exactly replicated, and more practically, it holds up the roof. After all the footage for the week has been assembled, we do a quick run through to make sure we have upheld our guiding principle: heartfelt, humor, and how-to. If one is missing, we find unused footage or shoot new footage to add to the show. On video posting days, we have been known to run around filming one of our animals for heartfelt footage or inspiring a family member to act goofy when the show lacks humor. Our guiding principle of the 3 H's keeps our message in our show consistent. It helps us to stay on track when we are filming and editing. Viewers appreciate the consistency. Editing and filming in different and new ways helps to improve our skill set and brings variety to our show, while the guiding principle keeps the show glued together. In our opinion, audio is the most important element in video editing. If you can't hear it, nobody's going to watch it unless, of course, it's a visual-only video. Several years before YouTube, yes, those days really did exist. Like today, websites provided information to read and internet sites streamed music and talk shows, but internet speeds were not fast enough to stream video to most home computers. As we waited for internet speeds to improve, YouTube emerges onto the scene with a clever solution: video streaming with adjustable video resolutions. This meant that viewers with slow internet could play videos at low resolution, while viewers with fast connections could view at higher resolutions. In this, we discovered that it didn't matter if the video was so pixelated we could barely make it out, as long as we could hear it. Views were piling up for videos that could be heard but not necessarily seen. Our conclusion? Sound is more important than visuals. Fortunately, Gary, the father and husband of our bunch, loves working with sound. From the very beginning, he's edited all our sound in most every video. It's no small feat when working with amateur equipment. An added complication is much of our filming is done outdoors, where certain days require navigating wind noise. Directional microphones have been our best option for run-and-gun filming and audio recording. These are available for most smartphones, and professional shotgun microphones can be used with action cameras with an adapter. When video is imported into the editor, the clips have varying levels of volume. Every editor has a visual sound meter to gauge volume output. Most video clips require volume adjustments. The objective is to create a consistent output level. We may be required to adjust volume up or down to meet this level. Using the gauge in the sound editor, voices are set to level 0 dB, and music, when played by itself, is set to level -6 dB. Keeping the sound levels consistent for the entire show is important so that the listener doesn't have to adjust their volume up or down to compensate for uncomfortable peaks and valleys in the show's audio. The problem arises when we upload our videos to different social media platforms. Each social media company re-renders the video to match their storage requirements, and sound, especially background music, sometimes will automatically increase in volume during this re-rendering process. The music levels may be perfect in the editor, but after the upload, the voices may be drowned out and the communication lost. This issue is compounded by the viewer's smartphone, computer, or television, which all have varying blends of music and voice audio levels. As mentioned earlier, setting music to -6 dB works well when only music is playing. But when you have background music underneath a conversation, then we set the volume low enough that it is barely audible. This usually ranges from -21 dB to -31 dB. It is better to err in setting it too low than too high. When editing sound, the most common audio tool we use is the loudness control. Loudness is different than what we mentioned above. It is in essence adds presence and volume to the background sound.
What's the difference? Presentation!
Once this is added to the clips, we correct any spikes in volume. As you can imagine, based on the type of video content our family produces, we have several types of construction noises that spike and must be turned down. There are two ways we manage this: by simply adjusting the volume manually or dropping a limiter effect on the clip, which automatically lowers the peaks. Hearing construction sounds is essential to the content and message of our videos, but sound must add to the story, not assault the ears. A sound should never startle a listener as it interrupts the enjoyment and flow of the show. Keeping or adding natural noises from the environment in the background fills out the scene. Time-lapse clips do not have sound, so we use music, sound effects, an interview, or a combination of two or more of those. Complete silence creates an awkward feeling, so we use it only when we want that effect, usually during a joke. Adding sound effects can help add to the scene. Our rule of thumb is that the sound effect should not be noticed. It needs to be turned down so it's barely heard. When that sound effect is subtle, it enhances the scene rather than distracting from it. A good set of studio speakers is vital for hearing the correct volume levels. We have found that headphones don't work as well as speakers to approximate the sound that the viewer will hear. These are the basic sound adjustments we make for each video we produce. Getting the sound right can be challenging. There is plenty of in-depth information available on the internet if you would like to delve deeper. Over the years, we have used various types of equipment. We have had Canon digital cameras, a Panasonic GH5, and even cinematic cameras. But as technology improves, we have moved to simpler and more convenient options: action cameras and smartphones. We are hesitant to mention which cameras and microphones we use because we are constantly adapting to new innovations and improvements in cinematic cameras, action cameras, and smartphones. Please take this information as a guideline rather than a recommendation. We use a smartphone as our main camera and action cameras for secondary ones. As mentioned in the previous tip, we consider sound of utmost importance, so we invest in the best microphones we can afford. We use a microphone that attaches directly to our smartphone called the Shure MV88. This mic may seem unnecessary, but it picks up better sound by using directional technology that reduces ambient noises. We also use a Sennheiser shotgun microphone with an adapter for our action camera, both of which have a dead cat, the fuzzy glove that's placed over the microphone. For podcasts, we use an MXL 990 with a windscreen. We have tried other microphones, but always seem to come back to this one. This is the one I'm currently using. These microphones are relatively inexpensive and have wonderful recording quality. For video cameras, we look for sharp clarity, crisp color, and built-in stabilization. I remember as a kid watching football on television. We would see a cameraman with a large professional camera on the sidelines who would run and film at the same time. When the footage cut to the moving camera, I was amazed at how smoothly the scene unfolded on the big screen. Today, we get the same picture quality and stabilization from a camera the size of a box of toothpicks. Technology has come a long way and will probably continue to amaze us. Currently, we use the latest iPhone, not as a phone, but for video recording. The built-in stabilizer continues to improve along with video recording in low light. We also use GoPros as secondary cameras for time-lapse and established shots. We film in two different types of setting, an interview scene and a work environment. Interviews are easy to record as they can be done in a controlled setting, but recording conversations during a live project is not always easy. Documentaries use lapel mics that pick up all the discussions, but we've not yet ventured down that route. The directional microphones on our cameras allow for most flexibility while working, and we love to work. Setting up microphones and cameras needs to be easier. We wouldn't do it. If we took time to set up our microphones, lights, multiple cameras, our work would be delayed and our motivation gone. Keeping video and audio recording as simple to use as possible allows us more time to work on projects. The good news is most people already have what one needs to get started: a smartphone. Compared Compatible microphones with good reviews usually cost less than $100. If you can't afford a microphone, don't let that stop you. Every phone has a built-in mic, so go with what you have. Drones are a special bonus, and we love them. We don't use them extensively, but they provide unique artistic shots. We've had a DJI 2, 3, and 4, but our new favorite is the DJI Mavic Mini. The coloring is better than our previous drones, and its small size makes it a flexible option for filming off-site. Once a video has been captured, we bring it into Final Cut Pro to edit. Currently, we use MacBook Pro laptops. Inexpensive and/or free editors are available for every smartphone, tablet, and computer. Final Cut Pro is what we know, but whatever is available to you will work fine. It's easy to get started editing and producing video content. Whatever equipment you currently have, use it and build up as you grow. The video community is big and growing, and yet we continue to need good content. Your voice is important and unique, so never let equipment stop you from moving forward. Finding a unique perspective. If we have an outcome in mind before we film, we get specific footage, making it easier when it's time to edit. However, most of the time we don't know the outcome because our show is reality-based. Therefore, we make sure we have several types of camera shots. For transitions, we film shots of people entering and exiting scenes. Of course, the most obvious is to film the progression of the project, carefully selecting times when something new is happening and getting shots of people having fun or describing something that cannot be easily deciphered from the visuals. Timelapse works well to quickly show the whole process or fill in movement too boring to watch in real time, but needed to tell the story. Established shots are important and easy to forget, but they add greatly to the show. These are scenes that show the entire setting. It could be as simple as a scene from a few feet away of a person at a table, anything that takes in the whole scene or location. For example, if you watch a sitcom or drama on television, you will see a quick shot of either the outside of the house, business, or someplace that helps us know where the scenes that follow are going to take place. Shows are consistent throughout the entire series. This is where a drone shot comes in nicely, but any properly placed camera will work. One way to communicate is to film action moving towards the subject. This subtly helps the viewer understand we are entering the scene. For example, we could start with an established shot, move or cut into a closer shot, and then move away when we're ending the scene. This creates a natural feel of beginning and ending for the viewer. In edit, we can reverse a video shot to make sure it moves the correct way, which works fine as long as we don't have people or animals walking. Eyes will immediately look to something moving. This brings us to the next point. During editing, we have to be aware of movement in a scene. If we want to show something on the screen like a finished piece of art, but we have a bird that flutters in the background, a viewer will be drawn to the movement and it will take away from what we're trying to communicate. Time-lapse is satisfying to watch because it shows progress. We use these especially when one of us is working and nobody is available to film. The camera is placed strategically depending on the activity. Sometimes when placing it too far back, it becomes hard to see what is changing. We have to determine what is the best placement to see the progress. There are sliders available for under $100 that will slightly move over time and adds a neat effect to the time lapse. However, if we end up having to cut out a chunk of the time lapse, it will have a jump, which ruins the effect. To mitigate this, we use a slider when we know the project is going to have a solid hour of work. Movement can also be created in the editor. We like to have a time lapse along with regular filming during a project, so if we need more visuals, they are available. When watching either a movie or TV show, we soon discover that camera shots of faces are dominant, and it's easy to understand. Faces are the most intriguing. This becomes difficult when filming a reality show, as it's easy to get caught up in what we're doing instead of our facial reaction to it. We try to do an equal amount of video of what we are doing and faces. This is where interviews work because they give the viewer a clear look at a face. While filming a project, we try to get artistic shots and interesting angles along with the ones that communicate clearly to the viewer. Over the shoulder is good as it is one that quickly gives the viewer perspective. Eye-level shots are most familiar to the viewer and work good for established shots. Moving the camera to any place but eye level usually makes for interesting footage. People don't usually get too close, kneel down, or get on a ladder to view something, so these shots become most interesting to the viewer. During our projects, the camera work is done by whoever is available. We like to have a minimum of 3 people on a project, 2 to do the work and 1 to film. 2 people in front of the camera creates interaction. We switch places filming, which adds to the variety of video shots since everyone has a unique style. One of the most difficult things to remember is to keep the camera steady when filming. It takes a viewer longer to take in a scene than it does in real time. It is something we continue to work on. In the moment, we forget we're filming and we take the camera along for a ride. It can become nauseating to the viewer if we're not careful. Some shaky movement can be fixed in post-edit, but it's better to input good footage. When we are ready to edit, it's nice to have different types of footage: established shots, time lapses, artistic footage, eye-level video, and interviews. We like to have both indoor and outdoor footage as well. Having variety adds to the entertainment value of the show. If during the editing process we discover we need a shot, sometimes we can go back and reshoot. An established shot will work if it doesn't show the complete project too soon. If we miss something during the project, we're usually out of luck. It's surprising how important it is to the continuity to get the shot at the time the action occurs. Weather can be different from day to day, and wearing different clothing can sometimes throw a viewer off. Getting all the shots in the proper order is the best way to do it if we can. Having a designated person to film really works best, and if that person is creative with the camera, it can make or break a show. Getting great footage is an art unto itself, and we strive to get better at it each show. If we want to scare someone, we might hide behind a chair. When that person arrives, we jump out and yell, "Boo!" But if we want to make it more surprising, we could jump out and grab the person at the same time. The surprise increases significantly. Using 2 senses, in this case, hearing and touch, we create a jarring experience. In watching a video, we use 2 senses, sight and sound. When we edit, we will need to offset visuals and audio at times to create a more natural feel to the viewer. For example, it is natural for us to hear an airplane before we look up to see it. If we hear a dog bark, we may look out the window to see why the dog is barking. We hear the sound, then we look. This is a natural pattern. Whether or not we notice it, we are familiar with hearing the audio from a scene in a movie while we are still watching the previous scene. This is done to prepare the viewer for what is coming next.
Anything.
Nothing at all.
We subconsciously adjust in doing so. We flow naturally to the next scene, just as we do looking towards a sound we hear, like the airplane example. Another way is to allow the scene to change, pause for the viewer to take in the visual, then begin playing the audio.
Jerry?
The most common problem inexperienced editors make is keeping the visuals and audio in sync at every cut, which can disrupt the viewer. If we want to create an enjoyable experience, it must flow without disruptions. This is why we separate some audio and visuals when editing, either in a clip or by using B-roll, which is footage that's placed over the main storyline. How to do this is as simple as disconnecting the audio from the visual in the editor on the timeline and dragging scenes one way or the other. Editors are designed to keep the audio attached to the visual, so as the clip is shortened or lengthened, the lip sync stays intact. Play with this idea and you will be amazed at the different feel it has.
I bet you I know what happened. Jared, I bet you I know what happened.
An idea for an interview clip is to show a different scene for a short time, hearing it first, before we show the face of the interviewee.
We are totally psyched about this next project here. We're looking at redoing the...
This feels very natural to the viewer. There are obvious jarring scenes we can anticipate, for example, changing subject or location. We utilize music in this case, and we'll elaborate more on that in tip number 8. One of the easiest videos to edit is a music video. The ear is listening to the music while the eye watches the scenes change. Music keeps the audio and visuals out of sync. This allows an editor to place scenes randomly. Even the least experienced editor can make a good music montage. Making a scene change on a beat can enhance it further. It's probably why the TV and film industry uses music for transitions and strategically under conversations. It keeps the show flowing from one scene to the next. We want the viewers to connect to the show, enjoy watching, and keep watching. Jarring the viewer will have the opposite effect. When When we discovered this simple little trick of offsetting sight and sound, it changed our editing overnight and led to a whole new level of discovery and challenge. If you haven't done this already, try it the next time you edit and see what a difference it makes. We like to think of video editing as 3 storylines: audio, visual, and emotional. Each one adds to the story content in a different way. Audio storytelling is for the ears, visual is for the eyes, and emotional is for the heart. Audio storytelling is what we use as the main driving narration of the video. For us, it consists of speaking directly to the viewer, conversations that will happen naturally during the videoing of a project, and interviews to fill in any gaps in the story. If a video is scripted, the footage is laid out accordingly on the timeline. However, we do reality shows, so we never know exactly what story we're going to tell each week. Breaking the show into 3 storylines allows us to share editing as it follows the same process. Our editing process begins with taking the raw footage we collect during the week, watching it, and selecting segments we like. We drop it into either the main or secondary timeline, called A and B roll. For us, the A roll represents the audio storyline, as the B roll is for visuals. The trick is to listen for interesting conversation and drop it on the main timeline, and watch for good visuals to drop on the secondary timeline. When done, we have usable footage somewhat organized. During this time, we are determining the developing storyline. This includes an introduction, content, and conclusion, which are separated in 3 or more sections. For example, the first section could be what is going to be accomplished. The second, third, and fourth could be the progression of the project divided up by each day worked, or when a small task is finished within the project. Then the last section is the conclusion of the project. A section is generally 30 seconds to 3 minutes. That may seem short, but if we time shows on television, a section changes within that time frame. We want our show to keep the attention of the viewer, so we follow this pattern. We usually start with a 30-second introduction. Longer sections are created but do not exceed 3 minutes. Transitions are placed between the sections. More on that on the next tip. Once we have the story dropped onto the timeline in sections, we scan through what we have, decide what information is missing or would be fun to add. Interviews provide missing or additional information. Interviews may ask why we are doing a particular job or reveal a fun story that relates to the scene. We like to have at least 2 people in an interview, as it can provide humor to happen naturally. Once we have our interviews, we drop them into each appropriate section. Now the story is roughly laid out and ready for the next step. First, we edit the audio in the timeline. This means we ignore the visuals. We like to close our eyes and listen to the show as it plays. It's easier to detect if something is out of place or missing. As we listen, we weave interviews to make a succinct message. If it flows nicely and makes sense, we can move forward. Sometimes we have to go back and add more narration, collect additional footage, or dub in words to help the story flow. Once we are happy with the introduction, content, and conclusion of the storyline, we move on to the next step: visuals. The interesting thing about visuals is they don't necessarily have to match the audio storyline. With the audio edit complete and setting on the main timeline, the second footage, B-roll, or what we like to call our visual timeline, is ready for editing. This step is the most difficult, as it requires us to decide when a visual should be placed over the main timeline. The best way is for us to begin watching the scene, and when it gets boring or jarring, we move a visual clip over the audio. Visuals describe what is being said. Other times, we may want to show a series of scenes that tell a different story. The important thing is that the scenes are not random. The visuals should follow a logical storyline. For example, a scene can start out with an intro visual, then someone begins talking about a project. We see the person talking and describing what's going to be done. After a few seconds, B-roll shows the scenes of the work. This makes for a pleasing visual, and the viewer is happy because the story is moving along and not lingering on the same scene of someone talking for several seconds. Typically, after watching someone talk for 3 to 5 seconds, a viewer is ready for a new scene. With the visuals integrated satisfied with the main audio storyline, we are ready to move on to our third level of storytelling, the emotional storyline. Emotional storytelling is our way of describing the music in the show. Music guides how we feel as we watch a show. We are all aware of how suspenseful music makes us feel. Music enhances touching scenes, funny clips, and can change a slow section of video into a happy montage. When we first started, copyright-free music was not available to us on YouTube. It was difficult to produce videos without music. We used some of our own music and found various copyright-free music clips, but it didn't come easy. With a wonderful and growing YouTube music library, we're able to enhance the shows we produce. Utilizing music is an important element, so much so that we consider it its own story. It tells a story in an emotional way. It lets us know how to feel. Once songs are edited underneath the main timeline, the show changes considerably. The emotion brings the show to life. We always start our show with upbeat music. Music pushes us forward and sets an exciting mood for the show. A music montage is simply music with no dialogue played under a series of visuals that tell a story. It can reach a variety of emotions that guide viewers to feel the story. For many years, we placed music under everything, but as our microphones improved and we felt more comfortable in front of the camera, we began cutting music away at times. Song selection takes time and practice. Here are a few suggestions. Find funny scenes that need some jovial music in the background. Maybe cut or fade in or fade out for an uncomfortable pause. Test it both with lighthearted music and no music. Pick what you like best. Try starting the show with a song and continue the song in another place. At the end of the show, play the end of the song. This allows the song to continue along with the show. The viewer will subconsciously feel a sense of completion when the show is over. Picking out the right music will enhance the scene. It's fun to swap out different songs and discover which one has just the right feel to it. Using songs strategically instead of at random will enhance a show. Music is also used in transitions. We will be talking more about that application in the next tip. Transitions are an easy way to make videos engaging. They thread a show together and they're fun to edit. In tip number 7, we separated video clips into several sections. In this tip, we weave segments together. As mentioned before, after 30 seconds to 3 minutes of a section, we use transitions to create a break and an easy flow from one subject or location to the next. Music is used extensively to ease the viewer along in a transition. However, offsetting the eye-ear without music can work in some applications as described in tip number 6. Transitions are only limited by our imaginations. If it's seamless, it's done its job. Here is an example of how we use a transition. We begin a song quietly underneath footage before the new subject starts. The viewer hears the music and subconsciously begins to prepare for a change. It may run for 5 to 10 seconds under the scene, and then it grows louder as it becomes the main sound, and 1 to 3 scenes set up the next subject. The music dies down, the new scenes appear, and we continue with the next section. Songs have distinct sound changes. For instance, moving from a verse to a chorus. We use this change to coordinate scenes switching to new sections. The purpose is for the viewer to seamlessly flow between sections, making the show enjoyable from start to finish. As mentioned previously, we use the beginning of a song for an introduction of a show, the middle of the song placed somewhere in the midsection, and the end of the song to wrap up the show. It's usually an energetic tune that bookends nicely. When using the end of the song, we can use vocals or sound effects for the next scene.
Why don't we have a Beware of Javelina shirt? What's the deal on that?
We need a Beware of Javelina shirt.
Instrumental music needs to be finessed in order to flow from one song to the next.
Why don't we have a Beware of Javelina shirt? What's the deal on that?
We need a Beware of Javelina shirt.
Music allows us to visually accept things that would otherwise be completely off topic. We like to call these sidetractions. A few clips of a hummingbird drinking from a feeder smack in the middle of installing a patio, for example. Not only does a song allow us to accept it, we get a breather from the subject so we're refreshed and ready to take on new information. Sometimes we like to have a longer reprieve between sections, so we use a music music montage. These scenes may be anything from showing the progress of a project to something completely unrelated. It may tell a story of a butterfly nearby or display a different task. Anything interesting that creates a break. We like to use seamless transitions. However, some shows like to emphasize them. Remember the 90s show Home Improvement? They applied construction transitions between scenes. It became a very enduring part of the show. However, we have to be careful the show does not become all about transitions. We like our transitions to go unnoticed. So have fun with transitions, but not too much fun. Years ago, we asked a professional editor to watch and critique our show. He suggested rethinking the pace. It was his polite way of saying the show moved too fast. We like to cut scenes to a minimum to keep from wasting anyone's time, but we also don't want to exhaust the viewer. Without slowing down, the show races out of control. It's like a piece of orchestrated music. It has tender moments, fast-moving sections, and funny and/or dramatic times. If you view some of our older shows, you will see this mistake of racing. By the end of the show, the viewer feels drained. This is usually caused by peppy music playing from start to finish and/or continuous short clips of someone talking or joking without respite. There are several of these types of shows on social media, as well as ones that drag on longer than needed. The objective is to find a balance between the two. A race can be a sprint or a marathon. There are times when a sprint is appropriate. We see this for commercials or other short videos to get a quick point across in a fun way. When we began creating longer shows, a reprieve was needed before racing along again. Changing the pace of the show can be as simple as placing a transition to speed up or slow down. As a general rule, following a fast tempo song, we place a slower song in the next section. The beginning of the show sets the tone for what follows. For example, using the same music for the beginning and end of the show creates a uniform feel. It gives the viewer a start and finish point which ties directly to pacing. We pick this up from watching musicals. Musicals have a wonderful way of integrating the same music throughout the show to tell their story. Our 3 H's integrate nicely into setting the pace. Music is specifically selected for each type of feel. Lighthearted music works best for whimsical parts of the show. It enhances humor. Gentle music helps communicate the feeling of heartfelt scenes. To press a show forward, we use lively music. We also need moments where there's no music playing and other places where music gradually comes in to change the momentum. The show sits in a pocket until we sense we need to change the pace. After our show is complete, we all sit down together and we watch it one last time. We pay close attention to the pacing of the show. If we feel we need to slow down or speed up, we remove scenes, take music away, or cut sections of the show. When it's complete, our objective is for the viewer to feel satisfied and looking forward to the next one. Sound effects are a wonderful way to enhance selective moments to increase the drama or bring life to a scene. It's fun to use effects. They are like the sprinkling on a cake. A little goes a long way. Timing a sound effect is important. When something falls, we add a falling down noise to coordinate with the fall. It enhances the feeling for the viewer and adds drama. In this case, we add the sound effect to a noise that already occurs. However, if the effect is not timed properly or it's too loud, it distracts the viewer. We find they work best if they are subtle. Transition scenes can include sound effects to help communicate a new location or segment. A popular one to use is the swipe, which works well with the golf swing sound. It is shortened or lengthened to match the movement. This transition is used to make a quick scene change. Try it with or without the sound effect and pick which one you like best. Remember to lower the volume so we can hear it, but it doesn't dominate. Another favorite sound effect is the strong wind. As you may be aware, quadcopter shots do not have sound, so it works best for drone footage. Again, matching the wind noise to the movement and as low as possible will enhance the shot. Remember, silence can also be a wonderful sound effect. It creates awkwardness and is a favorite used in many funny videos. Awkward silence is made more effective when music and the sound effect end at the same time. Sound effects come with some editing software. YouTube provides effects that can be used in videos. Sounds can also be purchased or downloaded copyright-free online. We use sounds from all of these sources, or we record our own. It's simple to do. Create the sound, put a microphone on it, and add it to the scene. Using sound effects can be a lot of fun when used tastefully. The sound should be appropriate. Adding a cartoon sound to a serious scene is distracting. If someone comments about the sound effect, good or bad, we haven't done our job. Our objective is to make sound effects, like transitions, seamless. Timelapse is an how-toer's best friend. It shows a long, detailed job in a short time. By showing every movement made, the viewer clearly sees the entire process. The creative time-lapse footage found on the internet today is both intriguing and informative. Our favorite time-lapse camera is the GoPro. It has a wide-angle lens to capture established shots. The current picture setting allows for one picture every half second to every 60 minutes. We usually set ours at one picture every 5 seconds, unless we're filming something like a sunrise. Then it's set higher, like 1 in 30 seconds. In edit, we can speed up or slow down. Time-lapse footage sometimes moves so fast it's hard to see what's happening. This is where we put our communication skills to work. We can speed up to a spot in the footage and then slow down, maybe as much as 10%, to allow the viewer to take in exactly what's happening. Although we mostly use time lapses on our projects, we also like to use it on sunrises or sunsets, as mentioned previously. These can make great transitions as they indicate a new day or an evening time. Time-lapse gives us great flexibility. It's steady footage because it usually sits on a tripod, and it can be used for missing B-roll. However, dumping raw footage expecting it to communicate doesn't always work. It may contain sections that need to be cut. Content may not be in view because it's blocked out, too small to see, or someone walks away for lunch. We may need to zoom in, slow down, or speed up to make it understandable to the viewer. Slider equipment moves the camera slowly on a track to create a more intriguing time-lapse visual. They work best close up to an item while the main focal point remains in the background. We set up a slider for projects that require steady work for about an hour. If we walk away from the job during the slider shot, it will create a jump in the timeline. That section of footage will need to be edited. We could speed it up, or one trick is to zoom in on the footage at the point of the change. We play with the footage to find out what works best. We can also create movement of time-lapse footage in the editor. Our rule of thumb is to move fast or very slow using a pan or zoom. We usually play with different speeds when editing to find out the one that is most desirable. You can use a time-lapse camera to create a stop-action short. When filming, move the object, take your hand away briefly, then repeat until the object reaches its resting point. In edit, cut the frames that show your hand, and you have a simple stop-action animation. Next time when you drop time-lapse footage, think about exactly what you want to communicate. Look for those hidden nuggets that sneak into your footage like a dog, cat, or a wild squirrel, and take time to zoom in, slow down, and add that unique variety to your show. Every video we produce has footage that needs adjustments. Sometimes it's as simple as color correction, but other times it can be problematic due to the careless filming creating bouncy footage. This is one of our biggest challenges. More viewers are watching on large computer monitors and big screen TVs. The larger the device, the more prominent the movement. The millennial crowd and younger viewers can handle lots of movement, but the older folks silently protest and don't watch. Here are several ideas on how to correct wild moving footage. The easiest way is to run good B-roll over the top or reshoot, but let's assume this is not an option. Here are 3 possible ways to fix it. We use slow-mo in the editing software to slow down the footage. We shoot at 60 frames a second, so slowing down at half speed will give us 30 frames a second. This gives us a smooth view, but if we slow it down more, it will look choppy. This still may be a better option than the fast, unrecognizable picture. Another idea is to use a still photo and add movement to it by very slightly zooming in using the editing software. Slight movement is the key. If it moves too much, it looks unprofessional. The zoom could be something like 100% at the starting point of the clip to 105% to the end point 3 seconds later. It gives the scene a little life. Lastly, we use the stabilization feature in the editor. This works excellent sometimes, but other times it creates more of a problem. We like to test it with each scenario. Fast-moving, jolty footage will usually not work as a stabilization stabilization software will zoom in it too much and we can't see the scene. Sometimes it's as easy as adjusting down the stabilization setting to fix it. We have to experiment with one or more of the above correction methods to find the one that works best. The important thing is that the show is communicating visually to the viewer. Even the worst footage will work with a little finessing. Cameras today have quick zoom in and zoom out features that work while filming. This is great to use, but we are careful how we place them in the show. If we have someone narrating and B-roll running over the top, the footage should not make vast sweeping movements like with the zoom in and out. This is because talking scenes are slow scenes, so footage should coincide. We cut those movements out and save them for a faster section of the show, such as music montages, intros, or exits out of the subject. Audio is of utmost importance. We discussed in tip 3 the corrections we typically make, but more can be done if footage has obnoxious background noises, things such as wind, airplanes, or dogs barking. There are audio effects available that sometimes help to lower the amount of obnoxiousness. These are called low cut for wind noise reduction and hum removal for a steady background sound like lights or machines. Another problem can be something in the background that we don't want to see, like a license plate or home address. We can use the sensor or blur effect and move it over the problem area. If the problem is on the edge of the shot, you can simply zoom in a bit. Some of the newer smartphones come with a cinematic video setting. This automatically blurs the background, called depth of field. It makes for beautiful footage and indirectly keeps the background private. No editing required. Coloring is an additional correction we apply to our footage. Color preference is unique to each content creator. For us, every clip usually gets a touch of blue, saturation, and either lightening or darkening. If the clip is very dark, like something filmed at nighttime, we usually don't touch it because there's not much we have found to fix it. Clips that are too light are easy to darken by adjusting the brightness contrast levels. We usually play with the settings until we like what we see. If there are not people present in a clip, such as animals or nature scenes, we add more saturation to pop it. Using too much saturation on people clips will turn skin red. Unfortunately, one size doesn't fit all, as filming occurs during various times of the day or different lighting situations indoors. Footage doesn't have to have perfect lighting. As viewers, we accept any type of lighting as long as we can see what's going on. With that said, we like to have as pretty and colorful footage as we can. Play with different coloring settings until you find a preference you like. You can then save that preference and use it on a majority of your clips, making only minor adjustments to some. There are many preloaded coloring and effects you can use on footage for fixing or enhancing a clip. Drop one on your scene and see if it corrects it. Effects can also be applied to embellish footage such as raining, glowing, or an old-time film look. Effects come preloaded or can be purchased to add to your collection. The best solution to getting good footage is to do it when you're filming. But on those occasions when we don't, coming up with creative solutions can be a fun challenge. Try these ideas on poor quality clips. Add a bit of your own flair and don't let imperfections stop you from the joy of assembling a show. Editing requires that we watch the same footage over and over. This can mistakenly lead to over-editing. Watching the same scene continually while editing naturally takes less and less time to grasp what's going on in the footage. We have to remember that the viewer will only watch the video once. The viewer needs time to take in the scene and understand what's happening. It's not easy, but we have to train our minds to pretend we are watching it the first time every time we view our video project. Sometimes we need to take a break during the editing process and come back to it at a later time. This helps us return with what we like to call fresh eyes. As a rule of thumb, a scene is going to need a minimum of 3 seconds, sometimes longer if the picture is more complex. Video montages can be as short as 1 second per clip. This is important to keep in mind when we're telling a visual story using a music montage. If the music is upbeat, we want the story to move quickly. We need to pay close attention to both coordinating it with the music and communicating the visual story at the same time. It's not hard to do as long as we remember to keep those fresh eyes. Sometimes we watch the show over and over we're making cuts every time we go through, which can lead to a very fast, choppy show that stops communicating and disrupts the pacing. After we edited several shows, we began to find our stopping point. Being efficient will keep editing fun and fresh for the next video project. One way to get a fresh perspective is to ask someone who hasn't seen the video to give feedback. We've had times where we remove or cut sections of a show only to have to put them back. Cutting sections can lead to gaps in the show that may be needed to tell the story. If we're not satisfied with the finished project, it can lead to the desire to continue editing. More edits doesn't necessarily mean a better show. Limitations can hinder us, such as poor quality cameras, unsteady footage, or muffled audio. We do our best with what we have, looking for opportunities to improve next time, and leave it at that. We don't have to be satisfied because it's the challenge that pushes us forward. So have fun editing, but don't be too hard on yourself. We are in this together, learning, growing, and sharing. Gary's dad, Roy, was a radio announcer for 10 years. He shared some great advice with us on personal touch. When speaking on camera, he suggested speaking to one person. For example, if we want a personal connection, we don't say, "you guys." We speak to you, only one person. The videos become more inclusive, and in reality, we're only talking to one person on the other side of the camera. We find it best to stay away from the phrase "you guys" altogether and enjoy the one-to-one connection with our viewers. An exception might be if we're trying to rally a large group and we want to indicate that that group is many people. But even at that, we may want to make a call to action to each individual. We see this in politics. We don't hear a politician say, "I need you guys to vote for me." They might say, "I need your vote."
Give me your help and your hand and your voice.
We have a unique opportunity to speak one-on-one with a viewer. When we address a large audience by speaking in plural, we break that connection. If you think of your favorite internet, radio, or TV personality, they usually have a personal connection. Putting aside politics, one of the most successful radio voices of all time was Rush Limbaugh. Roy shared with us the secret to his success was Limbaugh's connection to his listeners. Roy would say, "If you listen to Rush, you will feel like you're the only one he's talking to." This is the type of connection we strive to achieve. Here is an example of both. At the end of the video, we might say, "Thanks for watching, guys. If you guys want to purchase a t-shirt, please go to the link in the description. We appreciate you all." Or, "Thanks for watching. If you would like to purchase a t-shirt, please go to the link in the description. We appreciate you." Can you hear and feel the difference? We prefer saying the second one because it feels more personal to us as well, which leads us to the next point, camera shy. When we first started, I couldn't be in front of the camera at all because it made me nervous and rigid. The camera would point my way, and immediately I felt like I had to speak louder and more expressive. Once again, Gary's dad, Roy, gave me the best advice. He told me to pretend that the camera was the face of a good friend. He said, "Look directly into the camera and speak to Susie." The more I did it, the more comfortable I became. The biggest problem for me is overthinking. Over the years, I have learned to relax and be, quote, normal. The best personalities on camera are the ones who are able to express themselves the same on and off the camera. Here's a couple more examples using political figures. Think of presidents and their comfort level in front of the camera and large groups of people. President Trump and Obama are both able to loosen up and speak normal, which creates this strong connection with their supporters. Nervousness displays phoniness because it is. We are acting different because we are afraid. The good news is we don't have to stand in front of a large crowd. Only a little, tiny, insignificant lens, which happens to look exactly like the face of our favorite friend. So loosen up, have fun, and speak directly to the camera like it's your best friend. If we forget to address you and say, "you guys," it's a simple edit to remove guys. While we were learning this technique, we had to do this several times. We still remind each other regularly. "You guys" is probably the most common phrase for content creators. Change to "you" and stand out from the crowd. Two more bonus tips. Be sure to look the lens in the eye and not the display screen. This is easy to do because it's moving, so our eyes are directed to it. And of course, we want to make sure our hair is combed just right. Personal connection is looking someone in the eye. And last but not least, let's talk about voice quality. I'm sure you've experienced clicking away from a video because you can't continue to listen to someone. It's hard to personally connect with someone with a squeaky, nasally, or high voice. If you are concerned about your voice, a simple fix is to practice speaking from your chest and not your nose. This is usually the issue, and it's easy to resolve with some practice. There are several videos and books written on improving voice quality for public speaking that you can look into if you are further interested. Personal touch is an important element of our video content. We want you to feel a part of our family because we have grown attached to you over the years. We may never meet you, but you are part of what we do and have added much to our growth as video producers and earthbag builders. A community of personalities and ideas is a beautiful thing. We could never succeed without you. So enjoy making that personal connection with your viewer. Animation is moving static objects. There are times we need words, diagrams, or graphics to communicate our message. We have all seen animated movies, but for video editing purposes, we can use simple animated movement for a graphic, photo, or video clip. Moving something on the screen at all times is important for keeping the viewer's attention. Movement, as previously mentioned, is what guides the eyes. We showed an easy way to create a simple stop action animation in tip number 11 on time lapses. Let's look at how to create an even easier animation using our video editor. It works similarly to a GIF file. We simply change the graphic as it moves through the timeline. The only requirement is that all the graphics must have the same background in order for this to work. Animated graphics and titles are available for purchase to integrate into editing software. The ones we purchased for this video presentation is Lyric Templates and the Icon Mega Pack from Pixel Studios. In using the Lyric Templates, we simply replace the canned words with our message, and for the icons, we pick ones that correlate with what we're communicating. They are animated and ready to drop in to use in a video project. It saves us several steps needed to move these icons and words ourselves. There are times what we are looking for cannot be found, so we use the video animation features in our video editing software. For example, to pop a title or graphic out from the bottom of the screen, set it there for a while, and then exit, we use animation control points for the clip called keyframes. We create a keyframe about 5 frames in, then we set another keyframe at the start of the clip, 5 frames from the end, and then at the exit. These 2 keyframes at the end are needed to keep the frame stationary until we want it to move. Otherwise, it'll slowly move off the screen as it reaches that exit point. Viewing the video animation keyframes in the editor is beneficial for moving the keyframe or frames to a precise location. We can also apply this to a photo or video. If we want the viewer to focus on a particular spot in the video, we can quickly or slowly direct their eyes using animation. We may want to pan across a scene or slowly zoom in to create a little movement for a photo. We may want to use parallax. This is where we cut a subject out of the scene and move it in a different direction than the scene underneath. It creates a cool effect. If the movement effect exists in our editor, it's best to use it and not take the extra time needed to animate it. For instance, to create movement for a still shot, we use the handheld effect and dial back the shakiness property to around 10. You can imagine the extra time this would take to do it ourselves, so we only add animation if there's not another way to do it. Simple animation is a nice tool to have in our video editing tool belt. It can seem intimidating at first, but as you can see, it's fairly simple. The key is to open up that video animation viewer, or we can easily get lost. Sometimes our graphic is floating away due to some unseen keyframe placed farther down the clip. Instead of researching it, sometimes it's easier to simply reset and start over. It's fun to play with the animation feature, and it allows for unlimited creativity depending on how much time and patience one has. Try some simple animations and see where your creativity takes you. After we have completed our beautiful masterpiece and have asked the viewer to like, subscribe, and share, it's time to upload to further promote the video. We post it to different social media sites and occasionally adjust platforms because they change. We have projects, thumbnails, and movie files on backup drives in case we want to upload later to a new platform. Our main upload site is, of course, YouTube. We have invested many years in this platform, and it takes time to build viewership. We also update a website regularly that coincides with a watermark watermark on every video. The thumbnail is the most important for promoting a video because it's what the viewer sees first. It needs to stand out amongst a large and growing crowd of videos. YouTube suggests using faces in thumbnails as our eyes subconsciously are drawn to a face. Since we are a building creative channel, the best thumbnail for us is an established shot of the project. Adding people to our thumbnails helps to distinguish the size of a project in proportion to a person. A drone shot 20 to 30 feet off the ground pointed down towards an entire building is our most clicked videos. Once several of our videos post, we can then review which thumbnails are the most popular. It's also fun to scroll through other creators' videos looking for interesting thumbnails. The idea is if we click on it, others probably will too. Thumbnails are usually taken from a screenshot of the show. If we don't have one, YouTube will choose one for us. We want control of the selection. We scroll through the video and export a freeze frame, or we take a separate photo of the project. It's best to use a photo related to your video and not one to simply get clicks. You may get additional clicks, but it won't take long for viewers to catch on. Nobody likes to be tricked. We set our thumbnails to coordinate with the subject. Our Friday night show and full version movies have our logo and a yellow border. This video series contains a diagonal line, title, and emojis. Our podcast is done with blueprint background. This helps the viewers distinguish each video subject so they can determine which ones they would like to watch. One common style is to highlight the subject in white to help it stand out. In a photo editor, we cut it out and save it as a new layer. Then we can outline it in white and darken the background. The best thing about a thumbnail is it can be changed several times after the upload. If we don't like one or a new trend emerges, we can change it whenever we want, even years later. There are different types of viewers. Most will notice the visual first, while others will be drawn to the title. We like to be honest about the content of the video. An outrageous title will attract curiosity because the emotion drives people to click. It's okay to make a boisterous claim as long as you can deliver. Clickbait might get immediate attention, but we are looking for a long-term relationship with our viewers. To build trust, it's important not to trick them into watching something they're not interested in. Honest titles that create curiosity are the best. Writing a title, description, keywords, and hashtags will help the search engine to direct viewers to a video. An easy way to find words and phrases that are popular is to begin typing the subject in a search engine. The search engine will find the most popular phrases. We can then find creative ways to add them into our title, description, or keywords. The description is also a place to put credits to anyone who helped influence our video. We cannot stress how important this is. Generally, people will likely not care if you use their idea if you give them credit. After all, they posted it to share with the world. It's super fun to hear someone say, "Hey, I got this idea from My Little Homestead," rather than watching their video and say, "Hey, look, they took that idea from us." A few words make all the difference. Common courtesy is to list the credit link before other links in the description. On a similar note, if we use someone's idea from a comment we stated in the video, it builds community and honors the viewer. Because of the ever-changing nature of the internet, we will hear of a new social media site. We create an account in case it takes off. This will secure our account name at a minimum. Sometimes we post or upload a video to see if the site is getting any traction. If it does, we add it to our weekly upload schedule. Thumbnails, titles, and keywords advertise what we do. After spending hours producing a video, it's important we find ways to get it viewed. There are several videos and articles to help us keep up with this ever-changing industry. Please research if you want to delve in deeper. So get out there and sell yourself with an outrageous thumbnail and title, then deliver. Making money doing what we love is great, but having a higher purpose is the ultimate satisfaction. A higher purpose drives us on when we hit those dry times and feel like quitting. The reason we decided to share on the internet began small and grew over time. After moving from the city to the country, we were excited about every moment of our new experiences. Farm animals were birthing delightful little ones, we were growing vegetables for the first time, and the kids were building forts everywhere on our property. However, many challenges would arise, such as when was it time to harvest an organic pumpkin? Or what do we do when a goat gives birth? Even our older relatives who had been raised on farms couldn't help because either it was too long ago for them to remember or the farm wasn't in a dry climate like the desert. We turned to the internet for answers. We found a vast wealth of collective knowledge. It didn't matter what we researched, there was always someone sharing a similar experience. All our friends lived in the city, so our interests were becoming vastly different. While seeking a place to share our new experiences to give back and also share our excitement, we decided to post to the internet. I was a former programmer, so it seemed only natural to build a simple website. Then YouTube came along and video posts became the logical place to contribute since the kids enjoyed being in front of the camera and were already creating video shorts. We kept the website, posted videos instead of articles, and grew from there. Then something changed. We began to feel a higher purpose, a desire to make a positive impact in our world. We decided to produce a weekly show as professional as we could muster, similar to a TV program. Weekly shows meant practice every 7 days. Like most people, we are disgusted with many of the programs produced by, quote, Hollywood. It's hard to find a good series or movie to watch. Their programming doesn't match our family values. Herein lies our higher purpose, to produce wholesome content that promotes family and make people smile. Produce the type of show that we want to watch. There are many content creators making wonderful shows. The reason for this video tip series is to share our experiences so others, especially ones just getting started or wanting to but don't know where to begin, can jump ahead faster. In this way, we can grow our content creator community even bigger and greater. With a higher purpose, we stay motivated. Every Friday night, people are looking forward to our posts as one may look forward to a weekly show on television. We don't want to let them down. By posting weekly, it helps us continue to learn and improve our content. There will never be enough shows for people to watch. There is room for everyone who wants to create videos and post for the world to see. Find your purpose. Get out there and make it happen. Share and make your creative mark. You are the only you. Nobody does it like you. So show us what you got. And if you don't like what you're producing, don't give up. Keep at it until you're satisfied and then press on even further. The world needs your creativity.